you're not lost, you just lack an identity. And this is a feeling that I do resonate myself with because for in the personal level, right, in the personal level, I feel like I haven't really had somewhere to strive towards, mainly because I really lacked what on boundaries and never really knew myself enough. Right, that's that. I've never really had a set of rules to put myself under that I could consistently follow to make myself feel proud of myself, right? To make me feel proud of who I am. And I feel like it's a constant, you know, having an identity is a constant journey, right? It's about the human experience, it's about change, right? One thing that I do believe people have misunderstood about having an identity in general is like you cannot really change it. That because having an identity is shaped mainly by experiences and environments, you cannot really reinvent yourself into becoming something greater. And I feel like that's such a pessimistic and unambitious belief in belief in life in general, right? Because what do you mean you cannot reinvent yourself and change, right? What do you mean you cannot become something greater? If there is no change, you cannot grow. No growth will be seen, right? And um, and I feel like in order to establish yourself an identity that you feel you can sort of like put it. Let's say if you're a computer, pretty much put it into your hardware, pretty much, right? Like in your brain, in the CPU. It's mainly it stems mainly for two things if you want to establish a good identity, like a formal identity: self-belief and struggle. Right. Self-belief for me is the idea or the belief that you can genuinely do something just from the sake of it. Right. Well, not for the sake of it, but for the greater good of yourself, right? Even though you have not really done it before, right? And and I do think that self belief is genuinely a good one thing that people really take for granted, right? It's sort of keeping yourself and sort of like enslaving yourself into a fixed mindset of you know not experiencing enough and just basing conclusions off of that. Let's say, for example, you try to learn a new skill, you try a couple of times but failed. Instead of like maybe thinking about shit, let me just give it a go because I feel like I can actually get good at this. You just give up and you just call yourself someone who is not meant for set skill. Then that's such a fixed mindset and idea, right? That's lack of self belief, which is not really it's not something that you need for shaping yourself up, an identity you should be proud of, right? And the second bit of it, and I think this is the most important bit, is going through the struggle of the self of doing stuff, right? Of activity. And I feel like the reason why this is the most important stuff, right? The most important bit of all of them is mainly because this is your brain, right? When you do stuff, for example, do stuff that's completely out of your comfort zone, you have not really done it, or the few times that you have done it, you completely failed. It will always go back and try to trick you and try to hijack you and think, shit, Michael, you haven't done this in a while. This used to happen to me when I started to maybe wake up earlier. You haven't done this in a while, and the few times they've done it, it failed, right? Why keep on doing it, right? And this process, you have to go through the pain so that you can get the reward after, right? What I mean by the pain is you have to do it in order for you having a history, past history, you can always look out back for and say to yourself, I actually done this, I can do even greater things, right? And I set when I try to wake up early and stuff, right? I set myself to wake up at the same time every day of the week, regardless of Sunday or Saturday. And I did that for a week, And the next week I kept on doing it, mainly because I did it last week. Right? My brain already knows that I'm capable of now. I can do it the next day, and if I want to, I can even wake up even earlier, right? Because you already tried to wake up way earlier before. You can even wake up at a different time, right? And other example from this can be, for example, my case, talking to people and stuff. I try something. I'm a quite extroverted guy. Like, well, I'm more introverted in the good days. I'm introverted in normal days, extroverted in the good days, to try to say. Right. But most of the time, I would say 85 to 9% of the time, I'm introverted. Like, I barely talk to people. I don't want to put myself into positions where I have to talk and stuff, right? And I'm totally trying to like get there and actually talk to people, right? But one thing they end up do noticing is like when I'm mid conversation, not mid conversation, but like looking at someone that I actually want to talk to, for example, a guy at the gym, right? There's a whole mechanism and voices in your head that will say, "Don't talk to this guy," because the last time you tried to talk to someone, it went quite bad, right? They felt they were distracted by my presence or whatever. But just believe that you can do it, because you've done it, right? That's the whole struggle bit about. And the last bit that I just want to talk about, well, just want to touch on slightly is if it's easy, well, if it's just simple, not easy, why there's so many people that just don't do it, right? And the main reason I feel like in a world where we lack authenticity, right, we're not authentic enough, and we lack just being a true self because we need to fit in a certain group, or just feel, try to strike for someone else's approval. We often just have to do stuff that goes against our own beliefs, identity, and stuff, and they don't really shape us, right? Because I do believe that your past or your past doesn't really shape who you are. The ultimate human experience is about constant change, right? But it doesn't really shape who we are, and it's really tough to maybe set yourself boundaries to say no. Sometimes it's really hard, right? But that's where you gotta really put yourself in a position of struggle and say no to certain activities, to certain behaviors, right? And that's pretty much it, man. See you.